Let's get honest. Many people are too intimidated to tell you directly that they don't like you. Instead, they hide behind phony smiles, insincere compliments, and forced niceness. I've experienced this too, believing someone was a friend only to discover they were secretly wishing for my misfortune. It's harsh, but the reality is this: if you don't recognize the indicators, you'll end up squandering your time and energy on individuals who, at their core, don't truly understand you. So, let's cut through the nonsense and discuss the signs that indicate someone dislikes you but keeps it hidden. You might not enjoy what you hear, but it's far better to confront the truth than to live in denial. Number 1. They constantly joke about your shortcomings. We all know that one person who delights in making jokes, especially at your expense. They'll poke fun at your quirks, your blunders, and your little imperfections, all while grinning and saying, "I'm just teasing." Initially, it may seem harmless, but let's not deceive ourselves. These jabs often go beyond mere playful teasing. They are calculated insults cleverly disguised as humor, intended to erode your self-worth bit by bit. I recall a time when I was close to someone who always had something to comment about me, my attire, the way I communicated, even the projects I was pursuing. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was all in good fun, but as time progressed, I noticed a recurring theme. The jokes consistently targeted my perceived flaws, never my strengths. It didn't take long before I started doubting myself, questioning if perhaps I was the issue, if perhaps those flaws were as pronounced as they portrayed. Here's where the controversy arises. Individuals who continually make jokes about your flaws aren't acting out of affection. They're probing to see how much disrespect you'll tolerate. It's a subtle form of manipulation, a method for them to assert superiority while keeping you in a subordinate position. They're conveying to you, in no uncertain terms, that you're beneath them. And the most insidious aspect? They escape accountability because we've been conditioned to think that if we can't handle a joke, we're the ones with the issue. But let's change that narrative. I'm here to assert that there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself when a joke crosses the boundary. In fact, it's crucial. You deserve to be among individuals who uplift you, not those who belittle you for a cheap laugh. Genuine friends don't need to highlight your flaws to feel superior. They appreciate your strengths and assist you in navigating your weaknesses without making you the target of their jokes. I've witnessed it happen repeatedly. Individuals who allow these types of jokes to slip by, believing it's simpler to maintain harmony rather than create conflict. But here's the profound truth. Permitting others to disrespect you, even in jest, is a precarious path. It begins with minor comments, but over time, those jokes can wear you down, leading you to question your value. And the more you allow it, the more they will push until you're left doubting yourself. All because you didn't want to appear overly sensitive. I had to learn this lesson through difficult experiences. I realized that by laughing along, I was granting them permission to continue. I was complicit in my own disrespect. It wasn't until I began to assert myself, establishing boundaries, that I noticed a change, not only in how they treated me, but also in my self-perception. I ceased allowing their remarks to define me and began to take control of my narrative. So here's my advice. The next time someone makes a joke at your expense, don't merely chuckle it off. Ask yourself, is this genuinely humorous, or is there something deeper at play? If the answer is the latter, don't hesitate to call them out. It might feel uncomfortable. It might even jeopardize the friendship. But your self-respect is worth far more than someone's misguided attempts at humor. Ultimately, life is too brief to surround yourself with individuals who cannot recognize your worth. If their interpretation of friendship revolves around incessantly pointing out your flaws, then it's time to seek out new companions. the ones who genuinely care for you, will never feel the need to demean you to feel good about themselves. So stand tall, speak out, and refuse to let anyone reduce you to a punchline. Number 2. They offer compliments that feel like insults. We've all encountered it. Someone gives you a compliment, and instead of feeling uplifted, you're left with a sour taste, like you've just been hit with a velvet glove. It's the type of compliment that makes you stop and wonder, was that truly a compliment or an insult? And the harsh truth is, often, it's a mix of both. These backhanded compliments serve as a subtle, almost sly way for individuals to undermine you while pretending to be kind. I can recall a moment when I was working on a significant project that I took immense pride in. After investing countless hours of effort, I finally presented it to a group of colleagues. One of them, someone I believed was supportive, remarked with a grin, "Wow, this is actually quite impressive for someone like you." I stood there taken aback. On the surface, it appeared to be a compliment, but those last few words, "for someone like you," struck me like a ton of bricks. What did that imply? Was I not expected to produce quality work? And that's where the controversy lies. These so-called compliments are laced with ulterior motives. They're not intended to uplift you. They're crafted to keep you in a subordinate role. It's a power move, a means for the person delivering the compliment to assert their superiority while causing you to question your own capabilities. They're essentially saying, "I see your efforts, but you'll never measure up to me." It's toxic, yet it's wrapped in such a pretty package that you might overlook the poison within. Let's be honest, those who deliver backhanded compliments are often insecure themselves. They recognize your potential, your strengths, and it intimidates them. Thus, they resort to these clever digs to keep you doubting yourself, ensuring you don't rise too high. It's akin to them patting you on the back while simultaneously holding you down with the other hand. Here's where it becomes even more controversial. We've all slipped at some point, perhaps not intentionally, but we've allowed our insecurities to manifest in the form of a compliment meant to remind someone of their place. However, here's the profound message. You need not accept this disguised aggression. You possess the power to reject it and see it for what it truly is, a reflection of their own insecurities, not a gauge of your worth. When someone says, "You're smarter than you appear," or "This is good considering you're new at this," you don't have to swallow it whole. Call it out for what it is, even if it creates discomfort, because if you don't, you're permitting them to dictate how you perceive yourself, and that's a power you should never relinquish to anyone. I've learned to identify these compliments for what they truly represent: a mirror reflecting someone else's insecurities. When you view it from this perspective, it loses its sting. Instead of internalizing it, you can almost laugh it off, because at the end of the day, their words reveal far more about them than they ever will about you. So here's my current approach. When I receive a backhanded compliment, I don't let it slide. I respond with something like, "Thanks, but what do you mean by that?" This compels them to confront the subtle insult hidden in their words, and more often than not, it puts them on the spot. They suddenly realize you're not engaging in their game, and it's remarkable how quickly their tone shifts. The takeaway? Don't permit anyone's veiled negativity to define you. Whether it's a well-meaning friend, a jealous co-worker, or even a family member, remember this: your worth is not up for debate. Compliments should elevate you, not diminish you. If someone's remarks leave you questioning yourself, it's time to scrutinize their intentions instead. Life is too short to squander on individuals who can't sincerely celebrate your achievements. Surround yourself with those who recognize your value and aren't hesitant to express it without hidden agendas. Number 3, they discreetly exclude you from gatherings. It's the subtle actions that sting the most, like realizing that your so-called friends conveniently forgot to include you in that dinner, that party, or that weekend getaway. They'll insist it was an oversight, that it was a last-minute decision, or worse, they'll presume you were too occupied anyway. But let's be honest, these aren't mere oversights. This is social exclusion in its most cunning form, and it's a clear indication that you're not as cherished as you believe. I've faced this too many times. I recall checking my phone one weekend and seeing pictures of a group of friends enjoying themselves at an event I would have loved to attend. The kicker: not a single person mentioned it to me in advance. When I casually brought it up later, they were full of excuses. "Oh, we thought you were busy," or "it was such a last-minute plan." But deep down, I understood the truth. If they truly wanted me there, they would have ensured I knew about it. And here's where the controversy surfaces. This kind of exclusion isn't merely thoughtlessness. It's intentional. It's a method of conveying a message without uttering a word. They don't desire your presence, but they lack the courage to communicate that to your face. Instead, they hope you'll quietly fade out of the group without causing a stir. It's passive-aggressive and cowardly, yet it's also strikingly common. People avoid discussing this because it's easier to pretend it's not happening. It's simpler to accept the excuses, convincing yourself it truly was just an error, rather than confronting the painful reality that you're being pushed aside. But here's the crux. If you continue to accept those excuses, you're granting them permission to keep excluding you. You're allowing them to dictate your place in their lives instead of taking control of your own narrative. I had to learn this lesson through experience. For a time I remained silent, letting those accidental exclusions slide, hoping that perhaps next time I'd be included. But then I realized that by staying quiet, I was permitting myself to be treated as an afterthought. So I decided to take a bold step. I initiated conversations about it. I'd say, "Hey, I saw you all went out last weekend. Why didn't anyone extend an invitation to me?" It was uncomfortable, and it definitely created some tension, but it also compelled them to face their behavior. And guess what? The dynamic shifted. Some became defensive. Others tried to make amends. But the bottom line was evident. I wasn't going to allow them to exclude me without resistance. Here's the profound message. If people genuinely want you in their lives, they'll make an effort to include you, regardless of how last-minute the plan is. And if they don't, then it's time to reevaluate the value of those relationships. You deserve to be surrounded by individuals who don't make you feel like you're always chasing after their approval or attention. Genuine friends don't overlook inviting you. They ensure you're present because they genuinely appreciate your company. So if you find yourself being subtly excluded from plans, don't simply brush it aside. Address it. Ask the challenging questions and be ready for the answers, even if they aren't what you wish to hear. Because at the end of the day, it's preferable to know your true standing rather than be left questioning why you were left out yet again. And remember, you're not a backup option, you're a priority. Surround yourself with those who treat you as such. Number 4, they claim to be busy only when it comes to you. We've all heard the phrase, "I'm so busy these days. Sorry, I can't meet." It's the perfect excuse. After all, who isn't busy? But what occurs when you begin to notice a pattern? They're always available for others, sharing pictures of their outings, catching up with mutual friends. Yet when it comes to you, suddenly they're overwhelmed. Here's the stark truth. They're not genuinely busy. They're just too busy for you. I've found myself in that frustrating situation more times than I'd like to admit. I remember reaching out to a friend I had once been close with, trying to arrange a time to catch up. Every time I proposed something, they had an excuse. "I'm working late. I have a lot on my plate. Perhaps next week." Meanwhile, I'd see them socializing with others, enjoying themselves, always managing to find time for everyone except me. It took me longer than I'd care to admit to recognize the pattern. The message they were conveying was clear. I was no longer a priority in their life. Here's where the controversy arises. We've been conditioned to accept busy as a valid reason for being sidelined. But let's be truthful. People prioritize what and who they care about. If they're perpetually busy when it comes to you, it's not about their schedule. It's about their priorities. And that's a tough reality, as it forces you to confront the fact that you might not hold the same importance to them as they do to you. The unvarnished truth is that busy often serves as a polite way of saying, "I don't want to spend time with you." It's simpler for them to attribute it to their schedule rather than admit they're choosing not to include you in their life. It's a passive-aggressive way of keeping you at arm's length without confronting the awkwardness that would accompany speaking the truth. They want to keep you on the back burner just in case, without genuinely investing in the relationship. I've experienced both sides of this. There were moments when I was the one making excuses because I didn't know how to tell someone that I had outgrown the friendship. However, being on the receiving end imparted a valuable lesson. It's preferable to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable, than to string someone along with excuses. When I finally called out my friend for always being too busy, the conversation was awkward but necessary. It provided me with the clarity I needed to move forward and invest my time and energy in relationships where I was truly valued. And here's the profound message. Your time is invaluable, and so is your energy. Don't waste it on people who can't be bothered to make time for you. If someone is perpetually too busy for you, it's time to reassess the relationship. You deserve to be around those who are eager to see you, who actively work to include you in their lives, not just when it's convenient for them, but because they genuinely enjoy your company. It's crucial to recognize that people evolve, and so do relationships. Sometimes we cling to individuals out of habit, nostalgia, or fear of loneliness, even when they've clearly moved on. But there's strength in letting go, in acknowledging that you deserve more than someone's leftover time. It's not about being needy or demanding. It's about valuing yourself enough to part ways with those who don't value you. Number 5. They shun physical contact like the plague. Let's address the elephant in the room, physical contact, or rather, the absence of it. We're not just discussing romantic relationships here. Physical contact is a fundamental aspect of human interaction, a means of connecting and establishing trust. So what does it signify when someone goes out of their way to avoid even the most casual touch? The answer isn't pleasant. They're sending a clear message that they're uncomfortable in your presence, and it's time to take note. I once had a colleague who seemed to flinch every time I reached for a handshake or a friendly pat on the back. Initially, I thought I was imagining things, but then I observed it wasn't just me. They were warm and tactile with everyone else, but around me, it felt as if I were contagious. It wasn't long before I understood that their avoidance of physical contact was more than just a quirk. It was a conscious effort to maintain distance. Here's the controversial aspect. Physical contact is a natural part of human interaction, and when someone consistently shuns it, they're signaling a lack of comfort or connection. Sure, some individuals simply aren't touchy-feely, and that's acceptable. But when it's selective, when they're perfectly fine hugging others yet stiffen around you, it's a red flag that something is amiss. They might not dislike you enough to articulate it, but their body language is doing all the talking. And let's be honest, we've all experienced this on both sides of the equation. Perhaps you've shied away from a handshake or leaned back when someone got too close because you simply didn't feel it. Or maybe you've found yourself on the receiving end, puzzled as to why someone always seems to recoil when you're near. It's awkward, uncomfortable, and often indicates that the relationship isn't as strong as you'd like to believe. But here's the deeper truth. Physical contact is a foundational element of human connection. It's how we convey trust, warmth, and empathy. When someone avoids it with you, they're not merely steering clear of touch, they're evading closeness, intimacy, and vulnerability. They're keeping you at a distance, both literally and figuratively, and that's a clear sign that there's an underlying issue in the relationship. I've learned to be attentive to these signals, even when it's challenging to accept what they signify. There was a time when I dismissed the signs, convincing myself that someone's reluctance to get close was just a personality trait. However, the more I reflected on it, the more I realized it was about me and our connection. When I finally addressed the situation, it led to some difficult conversations and, in some instances, the conclusion of the relationship. But it also liberated me from the confusion of wondering why things felt off. So here's the profound message: don't overlook the signs. When someone avoids physical contact with you, it's more than just a preference. It's a statement regarding their level of comfort and connection with you. If you observe this pattern, don't hesitate to tackle it. It might lead to a deeper understanding, or it might unveil that the relationship isn't as solid as you presumed. Either way, it's better to confront the truth than to live in denial. And remember, you deserve connections where physical contact isn't something to be evaded, but rather something that occurs naturally and comfortably. Whether it's a friendly hug, a handshake, or simply sitting close without awkwardness, these minor gestures foster trust and connection. If someone consistently avoids them, it's an indication that something isn't quite right. Don't shy away from asking the tough questions, and if necessary, make the difficult choices. Life is too short to be surrounded by individuals who keep you at a distance, both literally and metaphorically. Number 6. They vanish when you require support. Let's be candid. Nothing exposes the true nature of a relationship like a crisis. When the going gets tough, you discover who your real friends are. So, what does it reveal about someone when they disappear the instant you need them most? It's not merely a sign of inconsistency, it's a glaring warning that they're not as invested in you as you may have believed. Let's face it, when someone pulls a disappearing act during your darkest moments, it's not just hurtful, it's a betrayal. I learned this lesson the hard way during a particularly challenging period in my life. I was grappling with a significant personal issue, something that deeply unsettled me. Naturally, I turned to the individuals I considered close friends, anticipating some level of support, even if it was just a text or a quick call. But what did I get? Silence. The people I assumed would stand by me suddenly had every excuse imaginable. I'm so swamped at work. Sorry, I'm just really busy right now. I'll check in with you later. Spoiler alert, they never did. Here's where it becomes controversial. Individuals love to proclaim that they'll always be there for you, but when the chips are down, many of them are only present for the good times. They'll celebrate with you, laugh with you, and relish the high points in your life. But the moment things become serious, they're nowhere to be found. It's easier for them to ghost you than to confront your pain or discomfort. They don't want to be dragged into your issues because deep down, they don't care enough to support you when it truly matters. And let's be brutally honest, genuine support isn't about convenience. It's about being present when it's tough, when it's uncomfortable, and when it's the last thing you wish to do. The individuals who vanish when you need them most aren't merely being inconsiderate, they're revealing your standing in their life. They're silently conveying, your problems aren't worth my time. I remember feeling utterly crushed when I realized that the people I had supported in the past, during their breakups, family crises, and career difficulties, couldn't be bothered to reciprocate. It served as a wake-up call, albeit an unwelcome one, but it was also a crucial lesson. Not everyone who smiles at you is genuinely in your corner. Here's the profound message. Support forms the bedrock of any meaningful relationship. It's easy to be present when everything's going smoothly, but the real test of a relationship lies in how people react when things go awry. If someone vanishes the instant you require their help, they're not just letting you down. They're demonstrating they were never truly there in the first place. But don't allow their absence to breed bitterness. Let it inspire you to be better. Use it as a filter to sift out those who don't deserve a place in your life. The ones who stick around, who check in, who show up even when it's inconvenient. Those are the individuals who genuinely matter, and those are the relationships you should nurture and cherish. Ultimately, life is too short to invest in fair-weather friends. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you through the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. Because when you encounter those rare individuals who remain loyal when times are tough, you've discovered something worth holding on to. And as for those who vanish, let them go. They've already shown you their true colors. Number 7. They engage in gossip about you behind your back. Gossip. It's the social poison that spreads faster than wildfire and can ruin relationships in a heartbeat. The truth about gossip is that it's rarely as innocent as people claim. When someone you view as a friend speaks ill of you behind your back, they're not just recounting a harmless tale, they're actively undermining your trust, tarnishing your reputation, and jeopardizing your relationship. And let's be real, when they gossip about you, it's a clear indication that they lack respect for you, regardless of how friendly they appear in your presence. I've been on the receiving end of gossip before, and let me tell you, it's one of the most agonizing experiences. There was a time when I confided in someone I believed was a close friend about a personal issue. I needed to vent, to relieve some of the burden I was carrying, and I trusted this person to keep it confidential. Yet within days, details of that conversation began circulating, twisted and exaggerated. It felt like a game of telephone, only this time the message wasn't merely getting lost. It was being weaponized against me. The individual I trusted had transformed my vulnerability into entertainment for others. Here's the controversial reality. Those who gossip about you aren't just venting or expressing concerns. They're engaged in a power struggle. Gossip serves as a means for them to elevate themselves while belittling you, all without the need to confront you directly. It's cowardly, manipulative, and harmful. They're not simply damaging your reputation, they're eroding the very foundation of trust that any authentic relationship is built upon. And let's clarify one point. Individuals who gossip about others in your presence will certainly gossip about you to others. It's a pattern, not an isolated incident. I've seen it occur too many times. Someone who revels in spilling secrets about everyone else suddenly goes silent around you. Guess what? They're likely sharing your secrets when you're not around. It's a betrayal of the highest degree, carried out behind your back without affording you the opportunity to defend yourself or even comprehend what's being said. Now, here's where it gets deeply personal. I remember confronting the friend who gossiped about me, anticipating some form of apology or at least an explanation. Instead, they dismissed it as no big deal, trivializing it as just some harmless chatter. But here's the bottom line. Gossip is never harmless. It's a betrayal, plain and simple, and it reveals far more about the person spreading it than it does about the subject. If you found value in our content, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share this with your friends to spread the wisdom, and subscribe to Najma Stoic for more inspiring insights. Join our community on this journey of growth and resilience.